Magic in Eberron doesn't just belong to wizards and warlocks. It runs through bloodlines, and now through feats that carve into history itself. Dragonmarks, arcane sigils that grant powerful abilities to those lucky enough, or perhaps cursed enough to bear them. These marks are more than just magic. They shape economies, control industries, and have created the Dragonmarked houses, some of the most powerful forces in Eberron. But where do these marks come from? Some say they're the will of the draconic prophecy itself, guiding the world's fate. Others believe they're gifts, or perhaps tools bestowed by the progenitor dragons. And then there are the aberrant Dragonmarks, wild, unpredictable, and feared by many. With the Unearthed Arcana 2025, Dragonmarks are back with new and expanded feats. Today we're breaking down each one, looking at what they do and how they fit into the world of Eberron and whether they live up to their legendary status. The world of Eberron was created by the legendary Keithbaker, but today you will decide how its magic shapes your world. Let's dive in. Up first from the Unearthed Arcana Eberron 2025 is the Aberrant Dragonmark. It's the odd one out of the bunch. This one isn't tied to a noble house. It's a mark of unpredictability, often dangerous magic. Mechanically, it gives you a bonus 1d4 to Constitution saves, a sorcerer cantrip, any first level spell you can cast once per short or long rest. The Aberrant Surge feature, which is basically a gamble, rolling a hit die when casting your first level spell. An even number gives you temp HP, an odd number deals force damage to someone near you. It's a fun mix of survivability and risk, but the 1d4 to Constitution saves feels a little tacked on. The real star is Aberrant Surge, but it can be punishing since you might hit an ally if you roll poorly. This feat is great for flavor, but might not appeal to players who want reliability over randomness. Next up, Mark of Detection. If you love playing detectives or inquisitives in Eberron, this one's for you. It gives a 1d4 bonus to insight and perception checks, detect magic and detect poison and disease, castable once per long rest. A full spell list that expands at higher levels, including clairvoyance and legend lore. Honestly, this feat is useful, but not super exciting. Detect magic is available for a ton of classes already, and while the extra spells are nice, they don't change gameplay much. This mark might shine in an intrigue-heavy campaign, but outside of that, it's kind of niche. Following up after that, we have the Mark of Finding. That is all about tracking and hunting down targets. With that, you get a 1d4 bonus to Perception and Survival, Hunter's Mark, plus Locate Object at level 3. More divination spells like Clairvoyance and Locate Creature. This feat is a solid choice for rangers and druids, making them even better trackers. The free Hunter's Mark is great for conserving spell slots, and Locate Object is situational but powerful. No major complaints here, just a very focused feat that might not appeal to every character, but definitely to some. After that, we have the Mark of Handling. This is for those who want to be Beastmasters, literally. You get a 1d4 bonus to Animal Handling and Nature, Animal Friendship, and Speak with Animals spells. At level 3, you can use these spells on monstrosities with an intelligence of 3 or lower. The expanded spell list includes summoning and control spells like Dominate Beast and Awaken. This feat is flavorful, but pretty situational. If your campaign doesn't feature many animals or monstrous creatures, it might not see much use. Druids and Rangers will get the most out of this. Mark of Healing. Now we're getting into some powerful territory. The Mark of Healing provides a 1d4 bonus to medicine and herbalism checks, cure wounds, and lesser restoration, both once per long rest. An expanded spell list with great healing options like Mass Healing Word and Greater Restoration. This is a fantastic feat for support characters. Even non-healers like fighters and rogues could use it to add some healing utility. The bonus to medicine checks isn't game-changing, but the free spells makes this mark incredibly useful. The Mark of Hospitality. This is all about comfort and charm. It grants a 1d4 bonus to Persuasion, Proficiency, and Brewer Supplies. Gives you Good Berry, Purify, Food and Drink, both once per long rest. A spell list focused on support and charm, including Create Food and Water, Aura of Vitality, and Hero's Feast. This is a fun feat for roleplay heavy characters. The spell list is excellent for downtime utility, but in combat, it's not as impactful as Mark of Healing. Still, if you want to play a charismatic innkeeper or a generous host in a campaign, this feat has a lot of flavor for you. Next up is the Mark of Making. The Mark of Making is perfect for crafters and artificers. It grants a 1d4 bonus to Arcana and any tool proficiency. Mending and magic weapon, castable once per long rest. A spell list that includes Fabricate, Creation, and Wall of Force. This feat is incredibly strong for artificers and can even work well on wizards or fighters who want to enhance their gear. Magic weapon is a bit underwhelming at higher levels, but the expanded spell list is fantastic. Overall, a solid feat that rewards creative players. We have the Mark of Passage. It's all about mobility. You gain a 1d4 bonus to acrobatics, and land speed increases by 5 feet. Misty Step once per long rest. Your spell list will include Pass Without a Trace, Dimension Door, and Teleportation Circle. This is one of the best feats for mobility-focused builds. Free Misty Step alone is great, and the spell list is extremely useful. Rogues, monks, and wizards can benefit from this. No real downsides, it's just an all-around strong choice. Then we have the Mark of Scribing. This is all about communication and written magic. It grants a 1d4 bonus to calligrapher's tools in a language of your choice. Message, plus comprehend languages once per long rest. And your spell list will include Sending and Rari's Telepathic Bond and Symbol. While thematically cool, this is one of the more weaker feats in terms of combat or adventuring utility. Most of its spells are situational, and the skill bonuses are pretty niche. It's great for intrigue campaigns or diplomats, but I don't see much use in like a dungeon call or any kind of combat situations. We have the Mark of Sentinel. It's ultimate bodyguard feat. It gives a 1d4 bonus to insight and shield proficiency. Gives you Shield of Faith, plus Compelled Duel once per long rest. A spell list includes Warding Bond, Aura of Life, and Globe of Invulnerability. This is a fantastic feat for tanks and protectors. Free Shield of Faith is excellent, and the spell list offers great defensive tools. Paladins, fighters, and even clerics can make great use of this. Definitely one of the stronger Dragonmarks in my opinion. Next, we have the Mark of Storm. This mark is all about controlling the skies and the seas, and its feat gives you a 1d4 bonus to acrobatics and navigator's tools, proficiency, gust and fog cloud, plus the free casting of warding wind once per long rest, a spell list featuring control water, wind wall, and storm sphere. This is perfect for anyone who wants to channel the power of the storm, whether you're piloting an airship or calling down thunder on your enemies. Druids, sorcerers, or even rogues with a swashbuckler flair can get great mileage out of this, a solid pick for mobility and battlefield control. We then have the Mark of Warding. This Dragonmark is all about protection, security, and locking things down. Taking this feat gives you a 1d4 bonus to investigation and proficiency with thieves' tools, Mage Hand, plus a free casting of Alarm once per long rest. A spell list packed with defensive options like Arcane Lock, Glyph of Warding, and Wall of Force. This is an incredible feat for rogues, wizards, and artificers who want to specialize in traps, security, and battlefield control. Arcane Lock alone makes it useful for any campaign with intrigue or heists. If you want to keep things locked up tight, it's a treasure vault, or your enemies, this Dragonmark absolutely delivers. Now we come to the Mark of Shadow. Masters of entertainment, espionage, and assassination. This Dragonmark is all about deception and illusion, and taking this feat will grant you a 1d4 bonus to performance and stealth, plus proficiency with one musical instrument, minor illusion, plus a free casting of invisibility once per long rest. A spell list that features Pass Without a Trace, Major Image, and Mislead. This is an incredible pick for bards, rogues, or anyone who thrives in the shadows. Free invisibility is huge for infiltration, and the expanded spell list does make illusion-based trickery even stronger. Spies, assassins, and ultimate performers, the Mark of Shadow is one that I think you should choose. So that's all of the Dragonmark feats, but we also have the general feats here as well. Everything from the Greater Aberrant Mark to the Potent Dragonmark. I'm going to break down what these feats do and how they impact your character, and whether they're even worth taking. Plus, I like to give my own thoughts on where these feats shine or where they might fall short. So let's jump right in. First up, we have the Greater Aberrant Mark. This feat builds onto the Aberrant Dragonmark feat, improving its Aberrant Fortitude ability from a d4 to a d6. It also introduces the Mark of Inspiration, letting you gain temporary hit points when casting a cantrip while dealing force damage to an enemy. The added survivability and extra damage gives Aberrant Dragonmarks a little more oomph. However, it still competes with other scaling damage sources, and Constitution is a requirement, locks it into a more tanky playstyle. It's a solid boost, but it won't revolutionize your character in any way. After that, we have the Greater Mark of Detection. This boosts your deductive intuition, making it a d6 instead of a d4. The real bonus, improved detection, lets you modify C invisibility, giving you advantage on initiative rolls and preventing enemies from gaining advantage on initiative within 30 feet. This is nice, but it's a bit situational. C invisibility isn't something most players cast often enough to make this feat feel essential. If your campaign is heavy on hidden threats, it could be a game changer. Otherwise, it's more of a flavor pick. We then have the Greater Mark of Finding. This enhances a hunter's intuition and adds improved abilities to find, which prevents targets from under a hunter's mark from benefiting from invisibility. Great for a dedicated tracker or bounty hunter build, but outside of those specific scenarios, this niche effect on hunter's mark may not be worth a feat. Then, of course, we have the Greater Mark of Handling. This enhances your wild intuition and lets your mount take a reaction after you hit something in melee, either moving or attacking. This is very campaign dependent. If you're in a mounted combat heavy game, this is amazing. Otherwise, it's basically useless. The Greater Mark of Healing. This will improve medical intuition and lets you reroll 1s and 2s when casting Cure Wounds. This is actually a solid healing buff, making Cure Wounds more reliable. If you're the dedicated healer, it's a good pick. If not, there are probably better feat options. After that, we have the Greater Mark of Hospitality. This improves ever hospitable and modifies purified food and drink to refresh allies, removing a level of exhaustion and granting temporary hit points. Purified food and drink isn't exactly a common spell choice, though. The exhaustion removal is very situational, unless your DM is hardcore about food, drink, and forced marches. Sometimes I am. After that, the Mark of Making improves artisan's intuition and lets you modify magic weapons, shifting its attack bonus to AC. It's a cool concept overall, offering flexibility between offense and defense, but it's limited to just magic weapons, so you won't use it very often. We have the Greater Mark of Passage. This lets you take a willing creature with you when casting Misty Step. Incredibly useful for saving allies and repositioning in battle. This is a great tactical feat for any mobility-focused characters. Highly recommend. Greater Mark of Scribing modifies comprehend languages, making enemies struggle to move towards a target. This is a cool thematic ability, but super situational. If you cast comprehend languages a lot, great. If not, you'll barely use this. After that, we have the Greater Mark of Sentinel. This lets you mark an enemy when you cast Shield, forcing them to move slower if they try to run. This is not bad for battlefield control. It's a little tied to Shield. It only lasts a round, but I think overall it's a pretty nifty feat. We have the Greater Mark of Shadow. This lets you make another creature invisible when you cast Invisibility. Invisibility is already a strong spell. This makes it even better for sneaky duos and surprise tactics. This one is excellent. The Greater Mark of Storm modifies Gust of Wind, giving you a flying speed equal to half your walking speed. This is pretty good. Gust of Wind isn't a spell people technically take very often, but anything that can give you a fly speed is excellent in my opinion. The Greater Mark of Warding modifies Mage Armor so you can cast it on another ally as well. This is really not bad if you rely on Mage Armor, and very cool if you can cast it on another player. It still can be very niche, but It is a great feat, in my opinion. All right, we've saved the best for last. The Boon of Siberys. Siberys? Siberys? Subcribe is a capstone level feat only available at level 19 and above. This is in the Epic Boon category, which means it's intended for the most powerful characters in an Eberron campaign. So let's break that down. It gives you a +1 to any ability score, and it can go past 20 all the way to 30. This is one of the very few ways to break down normal cap. A strength of 30 Barbarian, a Charisma 30 Bard. Absolutely terrifying. You get to pick a spell from either the Sorcerer spell list or the Siberys Dragonmarks table. I will eventually be able to pronounce that correctly. You always have this spell prepared. You can cast it once per short or long rest for free, and you can still use spell slots to cast it normally. You choose your spell casting ability when you take this boon: Intelligence, Wisdom, or Charisma. Here's where things actually get crazy. This Dragonmark spell options include Teleport from the Mark of Finding, one of the best mobility spells in the game. No more travel problems. Regenerate. Near infinite healing, letting you regrow limbs if needed. Hero's Feast, party-wide buffs, immunity to fear, and no poison, a top-tier choice for support characters. Plane Shift, if your campaign involves hopping between planes, this is fantastic. Control weather, yes, you can now literally change the weather, a perfect spell for those big dramatic moments. Demiplane, create your own pocket dimension. You're practically a god at this point. And if none of that appeals to you, you can just pick any spell from the sorcerer list. Want Wish? Go for it. Is this a feat worth taking? This is an epic boon, so it's already incredibly powerful. So how does it compare to other late game feats? +1 ability score can push you to 30, which is absolutely ridiculous. A free high level spell, especially with a recharge on a short or long rest, that is amazing. The flexibility to choose any sorcerer spell or powerful Dragonmark spell, which makes this wildly customizable. It is limited to level 19 plus because it is an epic boon, so most campaigns don't really reach that point. Some spell choices are situational. Symbol or Mind Blank might not be as game-breaking as Teleport or Regenerate. If you're playing as a martial character without any spell slots, the spellcasting part might be a little less useful, but then why would you take this boon to begin with? If your DM allows this feat, take it. No question. If you're a spellcaster looking for another powerhouse spell or a melee character wanting an absurd ability score, this is one of the best epic boons out there. What spell would you choose? Let me know in the comments below. So to recap, are the Dragonmark feats worth taking? Well, it depends. Some, like Marks of Passage or Mark of Healing, offer powerful abilities that almost any character can use effectively. Others, like Mark of Scribing or Mark of Hospitality, are more situational and really depend on the campaign setting. If you're playing in Eberron, these feats are great thematic depth. Outside of that, they might not fit well, but they can still be useful. Which Dragonmark feat stands out the most to you? The Greater Dragonmark feats are all about improving what your base Dragonmark already does. Some are incredibly useful: Greater Mark of Passage, Greater Mark of Healing, Potent Dragonmark, while others feel a little situational, like Mark of Hospitality and the Greater Mark of Scribing. Many of these feats modify specific spells, which means if you're not casting these spells frequently, the benefits don't really come into play. Some flexibility would help make them feel a little less restricted, but overall these are solid thematic improvements for Dragonmarks. And finally, of course, if your DM allows it, absolutely take it, no questions asked. The Boon of Siberys, it is amazing. Let me know in the comments what you think. This is James from the Dungeon Puffin. Can't wait to hear from you guys. Leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Later.